All right, here we go. Week 3 is up, and we have picks for the Big Ten and the Mountain West. We'll do every Big Ten and Mountain West game. We had a great week 2. We've had a really good start to the whole season, so let's stay hot with our week 3 picks. Steve's going to start out with the Big Ten.
Yeah. So right away, we got a banger right out of the gate. This is a game that was, hyped up on the offseason. We got Alabama traveling to Wisconsin, where I am taking Alabama to cover the 16.5. And I'm making that a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
You're not wasting any time. We're coming in hot today. Yeah. We're coming in hot.
Alabama, they're not quite that Nick Saban team that they have been the last few years, but they're still a good football team. Wisconsin, we did another episode, our power rankings episode,
right.
And I told you I'm about ready to give up on Wisconsin for this year. Their offense looks terrible. Their defense is just nothing special. I think one of their best linebackers is suspended for the first half of the game.
Okay.
So he got kicked out last week. I said coming into this season, the biggest question mark for them is can Tyler Van Dyke, can he come in and do something better than he did in Miami and give them better quarterback play? Well, he's been worse than he has been and was in Miami. I just don't feel good about Wisconsin whatsoever. Honestly, I think for a second week in a row, we're going to see an SEC team come in to a Big Ten stadium and just stomp the home team. So I feel very comfortable taking Alabama to cover that 16.5. And the only way they don't, which I feel very confident, that's why I made it a Big Mountain Ice Cold Lock, is if it would be some like really low scoring game or whatever.
Okay.
But I don't have any qualms about taking Alabama minus 16.5, and again, as a Big Mountain Ice Cold Lock.
Well, I like to take some other picks every so often. And when I saw this line, I knew you were going to pick it, so I'm like, I don't have to pick it as another game because I know you are. When I saw the line, I went, you got to take Alabama here. I wasn't sure if you were going to lock it, but I loved the line at it. And then when I saw what your picks were with the lock, I think it's a great pick. As you said, you have no real trust in Wisconsin here. And I get it's away. I guess maybe they're giving Wisconsin some extra points because it's away, but I'm with you. I question the line, and I think Bama should roll easily through Wisconsin.
To me, Alabama, it should be a 3-touchdown favorite. If I was handicapping it, it would be 22.5, 23.5, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So moving on, Central Michigan at Illinois. Illinois is a 19.5-point favorite. I like Illinois here. I'm taking Illinois to cover that 19.5 points. I don't love this bet. I don't love the spread.
Yeah.
I like Illinois' defense, their special teams. Their offense has been slightly improved, but not quite what I like to see it. So I didn't lock this game. I don't even know if I'm actually gonna bet this game myself.
Okay.
But I'm taking Illinois minus 19.5. And I'm just going to move along unless there's something you want to say.
Nope, not at all. You're good.
All right, Arkansas State at Michigan. I'm taking Michigan to cover the 22.5 points. This is going to be a get-right game for Michigan. They're going to come out pissed off. They're still a good team. They're just not at that dominating national championship level they have been before. But they're going to take out some frustrations on Arkansas State. So I feel really good about Michigan minus 22.5. I didn't lock it mainly because there still are some question marks about that Michigan offense, especially if they try and get Alex Orji in. He hasn't shown he can throw the ball. So I like them to cover the 22.5, but I'm not going to bet wildly on it. I'm not making it a lock.
Well, and go back to week 1, and I kind of wonder how much that Texas game maybe played into this line, because week 1 they were playing Fresno, and that line was 20.5. This is only 2 points different than what Fresno was. I mean, I think Fresno's
a much better
significantly better team than Arkansas State. So I think you're seeing this line maybe a little bit lower because of the Texas game. But I like your pick because, I mean, when I go back and compare it to week 1 and this Michigan team, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that it's only 2 points different than what they were doing with Fresno. So that's kind of, I go back to history to kind of help us predict the future maybe, and we'll see what happens.
Great point. So moving on, we got the Apple Cup, and it's going to be Apple Cup in week 3 during the daylight hours. Washington State at Washington. I'm taking Washington State plus the points. I love getting the 4.5 here. Washington has played a little better than I thought they would, but honestly, I've been impressed with Washington State. I'm surprised they're getting 4.5 points here, even though it's at Washington. I thought it would be slightly under a field goal. Like they might get a 1.5, 2.5 points. Surprised they're getting 4.5. I love taking the points. I think this will be a close game. So I love taking Washington State plus the 4.5.
Well, it's not even well, I mean, it's technically at Washington,
well,
but it's
yes.
not in the Washington.
That's true. Yes, it's in Seattle.
It's in Seattle.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever. But yeah, I'm with you. And this is one. I think we have 3 games tonight that you pick and I pick together because I'm picking the all Washington State and Oregon State games. There's also another Big Ten Washington or Big Ten Mountain West game. So I think there's 3. So this is one I'll be picking. I'll leave my comments for that. But I do think it's a good pick. I get the line or the spread being fairly close here. I think it should be a fairly close game. I'll give you my pick here in a few minutes.
I love it. Honestly, I think Washington, I will say even further, I think Washington State wins this game.
Yeah.
I may hit up the money line a little bit, and I just love them getting the 4.5 points.
Okay.
I'm going to move on to another game here. Oregon at Oregon State. And I'm taking Oregon State plus 16.5 points. I love getting 16.5 points, and that's why I'm going to make this another Big Mountain ice cold lock.
My goodness gracious, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, you know, Oregon offense has, we don't know yet what the status of their offensive line, but we have to assume they're going to continue to struggle. They struggled against an Idaho Vandals defense. They struggled against a Boise State defense. They got a lot of their points on special teams. I think 2 touchdowns on special teams. I think their offense will continue to struggle. Oregon State's defense is the strength of their team. I love them getting 16.5.
Yeah.
I would say I probably, you know, if I was going to pick the game straight up, Oregon would likely win the game, but I don't there's no way, in my opinion, unless they get everybody back and all of a sudden flip a total switch, that they're beating Oregon State by 16.5. So this was a pretty easy lock for me. I love Oregon State plus 16.5 points.
Yeah, this will be the best defense. Not a knock on Boise, but we all know their offense is the better part of that team. This will be the best defense that Oregon plays thus far, and we see how they haven't handled the other 2 games very well. So I'm anxious to see the Beavs defense against this offense. A lot of people thinking this being one of the top offenses in the country. I think they're going to have their hands full here with this Beavs defense. I'm with you.
Yeah, and also there's I don't know the exact the Civil War. I don't know. Or the border war, whatever you call it, when it's usually played, if it's usually played during rivalry week. I've heard some people kind of complaining. But honestly, I think this works out great for Oregon State to get them right now in week 3.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, moving on to the next game. Nevada, Minnesota. This is another one we'll be going head-to-head on.
Minnesota, you're hitting 3 in a row here. Boom, boom, boom.
Exactly.
All right.
Minnesota, I was down on them to start the season. Watching them, nothing has changed my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know where they get offense.
Right.
I'm going with Nevada plus 17.5. I think Nevada's offense has improved. I honestly have this game as a pick'em game. So if getting 17.5 points with Nevada, I don't think Minnesota is going to score 17 points in this game. So, you know, getting Nevada.
Well, then I'm so shocked you're not locking this game if you're that confident.
I thought about it. It's just Nevada's still a little unknown to me because we thought we were so low on them coming in. They have overperformed.
Yep.
So I just taking Nevada plus the 17.5. I love it. Not quite enough to lock it, but definitely I bet this game. I put my own money on this game.
Another one I'll be talking about, so I'll leave it at that.
So the next game, Notre Dame at Purdue. So I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover the 9.5, but I hate this line, okay? Yeah. Notre Dame coming off of a disappointing loss. Their quarterback is a little banged up. I don't like their offense at all. Purdue, I was down on them, and I still think they're going to have trouble winning a bunch of games in the Big Ten. However, Hudson Card, their quarterback, has played better than I thought he would. I think he can score some points here. I don't like the line. I like Notre Dame to probably win by about 10 points. The line is right 9.5.
Right.
So I really don't know how to bet this, but I am taking Notre Dame to cover the 9.5. But I don't love the line. I'm probably not going to bet it myself.
Okay.
All right, Prairie View A&M at Michigan State. This is very similar to last game. I am taking Michigan State to cover the 40.5. I hate the line on here.
That's a
lot of points, but Prairie View A&M is an absolute terrible team. Michigan State, JH was happy about my Oregon State pick. He's probably not going to be happy about this.
Yeah, no.
Aiden Childs is the real deal. You and I talked about this. He's the real deal. I like what I've seen from him, and I know Beavs fans would have loved to keep him. And honestly, and I said this, and I know this is rubbing salt in the wound a little bit, but I just got to do it. If Oregon State would have been able to keep Aiden Childs and was it Martinez, the running back?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they would be a solid college football playoff contender this year.
Yeah.
So I still like the Beavs and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take another year or so in Michigan State, but I like Aiden Childs. I just don't know if are they going to score, like, are they going to get to that? I mean, they could win this game 33-3,
right?
You know, but are they going to beat them by 40.5?
Right.
So
that's a lot of points.
I'm taking them to cover the 40.5, but I hate the line.
Yeah.
I would love it so much more at like, around a 30, 32, right. 33.
Yeah.
Troy at Iowa, another similar thing. We're starting to see a theme here with the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Troy at Iowa, I'm taking Iowa to cover the 22.5. But again, I hate the line. I don't know. I don't trust Iowa's offense yet. I think they are better than last year, but are they good enough to beat this Troy team by 22.5? We'll see. I said I'd pick every single game, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm taking Iowa to cover that 22.5, but I don't love it. I would love it at right around 17, because I could see this as like a 20-3 game.
Sure.
So if the line was like 16.5, I might lock it.
Right.
But I like Iowa to win the game, but I'm just that line makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
The next game going to be a total different story.
Oh my goodness.
So we have Indiana at UCLA.
Or a team you're loving on.
Yeah.
A team you're loving on and a team that you're a little not so loving on.
Yep. So Indiana at UCLA traveling to the West Coast. I am taking Indiana minus 3.5 at UCLA, and I'm making this another Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Man, you were going hot this week.
Yeah,
I love it.
Honestly, and I know they're traveling to the West Coast, but Kurt Signetti was asked about this and playing in the Rose Bowl, and he's like, it doesn't matter where we play.
Yeah.
This is a business trip. We are going out there, and we are going to do the things that we got to do to win, and we're going to make sure they can't do any of the things they want to do to win.
Yeah.
And that's how he's approached this season. Rebuilt, which I called, basically putting together kind of a G5 all-star team to play in the Big Ten. They're kicking ass. They're taking names. They scored the most points in Indiana history. Kurt Signetti will be the coach of the year this year in the Big Ten. He's the mad scientist. He's taken the Big Ten by storm. I absolutely love 3.5. I think they beat them by more than a touchdown, maybe double digits.
Yeah.
And which is why I took locked Indiana to cover the 3.5.
I agree, double digits. I'm with you on that. We've got commenters loving the ice cold lock. Chris squeeze money. Steven's loving Indiana to beat them by 21. He thinks they're going to really dominate
Wouldn't
that
surprise
game.
me.
Bill thinks UCLA maybe wakes up this week. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, you saw them go out to Hawaii. Hawaii, that game was a 3-point game. And Indiana's offense looks incredible right now. So this will be an interesting game, I think, because it's going to tell me a lot in terms of, is Indiana the team that you think they can be, and are they going to really push that win-loss record pretty high this year? And is UCLA really going to struggle? I think if it's a close game, it'll be an interesting test for UCLA. Maybe they can turn things around. If it's a 21-point win by Indiana, like Steven thinks, wow, interesting things to come for both of these teams.
I think double digits. I don't know. I haven't seen anything from UCLA that suggests to me that they're ready to turn this around. It's a rebuilding year for them. They have not looked great from what I saw. They didn't look great against Hawaii.
Yeah.
And Indiana, I'm telling you, Rourke, the combination of Rourke, they brought in some good receivers. They got a guy back healthy at receiver. And their offense is just humming. I'm as high as you can be on Indiana. And again, we brought this up before, but the over-under on them in the offseason at one point was 2.5 games that they were going to win.
It's crazy.
They've already won 2, and I think they're on their way to 3rd.
So let's back up real quick. Squeeze Money, who's one of our very special mountain dwellers here, he asked about the Apple Cup and the Civil War. Steve has picked it. I have not yet, but go back real quick just for our buddy Squeeze Money. Where are you at on those two games?
I picked Washington State plus 4.5. I love them getting those points, and I even like Washington State winning this game straight up. I think they're the better team. With Oregon State, I made a Big Mountain ice cold lock of Oregon State plus 16.5. I'm not sure if they will pull off the upset. They could. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. But I absolutely love Oregon State getting those 16.5 points, which, again, is why we made it a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Awesome. So there you have it. let's keep moving on the Big Ten.
Yeah. Okay, so moving forward, the next game, Northern Iowa at Nebraska. Nebraska, I'm taking Nebraska to cover the 27.5 points. Another game where I love Nebraska. They're going to win this game. I don't absolutely love the line, which is why I didn't lock it. I think Matt Rule, he's just a conservative coach. I don't see him totally wanting to run up the score. They're still, Dylan Raiola has done fantastic. They're still feeling out the offense, getting him brought up to speed because they have a long season with some big goals ahead of them. They got a big game. They're traveling to Ohio State this year. They're traveling to USC. So anyways, I'm taking Nebraska to cover the 27.5 points, but I don't love it enough to lock it. If it was in the low 20s, I would love it even more.
Yeah, understandable. And they really put up a lot of points there in the first half last week against Colorado, and you could see they just kind of, they won the game, and it was easy, but they didn't push that any further than they technically needed to. So I get why you're a little hesitant maybe on locking it and the confidence in it. So.
Matt Rule is an old school Joe Paterno disciple. You do what you got to do to win the game, and you don't need to do anything extra. So okay, so the next game, Eastern Illinois at Northwestern. I'm taking Eastern Illinois plus 24.5 points. I think Northwestern wins the game. Northwestern is the hardest team for the second year in a row. It's the hardest team for me to read. I think they win the game, but I have no confidence whatsoever in their offense. They have good defense, good special teams. They're well coached. Their quarterback is awful. Bad quarterback play, bad offense. So really just because of the line, even though they should beat, and the game might not be competitive, but I have no confidence. I could see them winning this game 24-6 or something, or 17-3. But I don't love the line, but I am taking Eastern Illinois plus 24.5.
Yeah, just too many points for a team that you think the offense is going to struggle, regardless of who they're playing. I get that. And, it was a team that I felt like maybe I twisted your arm a little bit last week. You say no, but I always enjoy the Northwestern picks. But at 24 points, I'm with you. I couldn't bet Northwestern to cover 24.5 points against almost anybody because I'm not that confident in their offense. So
looks like Sean Barron's not very happy. He says, "Damn you, Steve."
Yes.
Maybe he's a Northwestern fan, and it's not a knock on them. I mean, I like what they're doing on defense and special teams. I just don't like them to score that many points.
Right.
Now, I will say everybody is loving their new stadium by the lake. It's getting lots of attention. I read that they're filling it, making more money from that than they were from their old. So I love their coach. Very positive vibes there. It's just that's too many points. I just don't trust their offense.
Understood.
Now, the next game, Maryland at Virginia. I'm taking Maryland minus 2.5, but here's the thing. This is two bad teams. It's basically a coin flip game. That's why the line is 2.5. Maryland let us down last week. They're probably going to let us down, but I think they're slightly less bad than Virginia. And it's really not that much of a home field advantage. They're just going down the road, and it is what it is. I'm going to take Maryland to cover the 2.5, but I don't love it. I'm probably not going to bet it myself.
Yeah, I think that's a safe pick. I would have chosen Maryland there. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if anything, maybe Maryland, they score a lot more points than people think they could. I think the bigger upside in this game is to Maryland.
I agree.
So, if any team's going to, really kind of not blow them out, but win convincingly, I would put that to Maryland. So that's the safer pick.
And if they wouldn't have kind of crapped the bet against Michigan State last week, I'd feel better about it.
Sure.
But I mean, Virginia doesn't have an Aiden Childs. So.
Right. I was just going to say that. You were kind of singing the praises of Aiden Childs. They don't have that in Virginia.
So my last game, we're getting out of the Big Ten, and we're picking Florida State because I think Florida State's the next member of the Big Ten. So Memphis at Florida State. I'm taking Florida State to cover 6.5. Last week I actually picked against them.
You did,
and it worked out great for me. But I am taking them minus 6.5. I think they should beat Memphis by about a touchdown. They should. Now they should have won those first two games and didn't win either one. So if they let me down this time, this might be the last time I pick them this year. Coming into the season, I would have said I would pick Florida State by close to 20. Memphis is a decent G5 program, but the talent Florida State has or should have, they should blow them out of the water. But the way they performed, they've not lived up to that. Memphis, good G5 team. I think Florida State wins by about a touchdown, so I'm taking them to cover the 6.5. But I don't have a high level of confidence. I don't think I'll bet this myself.
I'm going to say Memphis is better than a good G5 team. They're one of the best G5 teams. I really struggle with FSU's defense here. I question what they're doing. I know DJU's gotten a lot of FSU hate. I don't put a lot on him. I mean, he has, and it goes back. We did some preseason stuff with TJ Pittenger, with Double Fries, and with Doug Rohan. They talked about their receivers not being able to catch. And that second game, there was a lot, well, not a lot. There were several drops where the receiver just dropped the ball.
Yes.
Like, when you're struggling like that, everybody has to pick it up. Nobody's picking it up for FSU right now. So I'm with you. I'm a bit on tilt with FSU. But I would say I wouldn't put it past Memphis to keep this sucker very, very close. We'll see what happens. I'm glad I didn't have to pick it because I wouldn't know what I would do with FSU.
A few things on Florida State. They're coming off of a bye, so they had a chance to basically regroup, get their act together.
Yeah.
I think they will be quicker. And you're right, DJU. It wasn't all his fault. He had some receivers dropping the ball, but I think they're gonna at this point. They're going to be quicker to pull the plug if they need to. If DJU's just not getting it done, they have some younger guys they could go to, and sometimes that provides a spark.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm comfortable picking that, but not comfortable enough to actually put my own money on it. So I'm not saying anybody really needs to bet it. And again, if FSU, if they don't cover this week, or if they straight up lose again, then I'm off that train for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And Anthony says, too dangerous to guess on FSU. That's basically what's, we're committed to picking every Big Ten and FSU game. I'm committed to picking every Mountain West game. And we're going to tell you straight up when it's games that we're not putting money on. We're just committed to making this pick. So, Anthony, I don't think I've seen your name on here. Welcome to the Mountain if you're new. So, all right. That was the Big Ten. You did a great job, and he's giving you guys 3 picks.
Yeah.
Remember, 80% on picks so far this year. So, and I love all 3 of them. And I love all 3 of them.
I think was it 4-1 on my locks so far?
I'm sorry, 80% on locks.
Yes,
yeah, 80% on locks, 4-1, 74% on your spread picks. So you're doing fantastic, Steve. All right, so let's go to it here. We got Clint back. He's a Beaver fan. Steve already picked them. I'm going to pick them as well. We'll get to what that looks like. All right, week 3. I have a Friday night game. I already picked this. If anybody saw our review episodes for the Mountain West, I also said it on the Big Ten review as well, I believe. But it's UNLV versus Kansas. I took UNLV getting 7.5 points. I love this pick. I love where UNLV is at right now. They are looking fantastic on both sides of the ball. I love it so much, Steve. Not only did I take it early, I'm making it a Big Mountain ice cold lock. UNLV, through 2 games, have only given up 105 rushing yards. Through 2 games. That's crazy. 60% of Kansas's yards so far have been on the ground. We talked about the improvement on the defensive side of the ball for UNLV, especially up front, that D-line. We thought they were going to be better. My goodness, have they been better. I get it. Week 2, they played Utah Tech. Okay, fine. But I'll tell you what, they look great against Houston. Everybody knows what Houston just did versus Oklahoma, a very close game, a game that I picked for Oklahoma because I thought Houston sucked, and it was a pretty darn close game. Yeah. So I'm telling you, this UNLV defense is going to be fantastic. You mentioned Jalen Daniels before for Kansas. He can struggle at times. He struggled against Illinois. I think if this front group of UNLV can get to him and get him off his game, he's going to have a really tough time. And we've talked about D-back, Jalen Cannelon from Texas, who transferred just for this year to UNLV. He could be huge. I love everything going around UNLV right now, and I got too many questions on Kansas. So I am backing the Rebels hard on this one.
I like the pick. I followed you on this, and I put money on them to cover the spread, and I put some money on UNLV, just straight the money line, straight up. Jalen Daniels and that Kansas offense did not look good against Illinois.
Yeah,
I think UNLV's defense is very comparable to Illinois' defense. And the player you talked about, the transfer from Texas,
yeah.
I think he's probably more talented than anybody that Illinois has on their defense. I think Jalen Daniels is going to continue to struggle. If you get to him and you rattle him, he can really go off kilter. And the last thing I'll say is I don't think Kansas's offense is on track yet. Losing Andy Kotelnicki, I know they got a good coaching staff.
Yeah.
This is the time right now for UNLV to play them, and I like UNLV to beat them straight up.
Yeah, I do too. We talked about maybe doing some money lines. So if you like money lines, it's definitely good value. I didn't write down what you're getting here. Maybe 200, 210, something like that.
I think I might have gotten 220.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, but anyway. Ice Cold Lock on the Rebels getting 7.5. It has fluctuated between 6.5, 7.5. Earlier day it was 7.5. So I'm hopeful it's still there. Give it some time. I think it'll bounce back and forth. Clearly, people are unsure about this whole touchdown thing. If you can get the touchdown plus, you got to get it.
Can I say real quick? I know you already acknowledged Clint coming in. He's a Beaver believer. He's got Beavers by 3 touchdowns, and I don't think he saw before you picked the game. I just want to make sure he saw. I locked them to cover was it 16.5? I locked them plus 16.5 against Oregon and said, I'm not sure if they might be able to pull. I wouldn't even be surprised if they pulled up the upset. I'm really curious to see. I know you're not quite there yet, but how you pick that game.
Yep. So I'm going to get to one that you already picked, the Nevada versus Minnesota game. Nevada getting 17.5 points. That's a lot of points. I was close to locking this game as well. I like them getting the points here. I've just seen so much from Nevada on both sides of the ball. Lewis, their quarterback, has been fantastic. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. You mentioned in yours that you have very little trust in the Minnesota offense. Yep. Okay, so it's a low-scoring game. You're going to give me 17.5 points in what we think is going to be a low-scoring game? Give me the 17.5 points all day, every day. Mini offense had 333 yards per game so far over 2 games, and they played Rhode Island as one of those games. So they're averaging 300 yards, which isn't bad, but look at what the opponents are here. Nevada's D is giving up 361 yards per game, but they played SMU, who has a very good offense. They've struggled a little bit, but one would say maybe it's because they're playing better defenses than people thought. They also played Georgia Southern. We know what Georgia Southern did to Boise and the amount of points they put up. So they're playing some high-powered offenses, only letting 361 yards up. I like Nevada here. As I said, I was close to locking this. I'm not going to do it. You were high on it. I'm high on it. We've talked about when we agree, maybe it automatically becomes a nice cold lock. I don't know if we're going to do that tonight, but we're both pretty high on Nevada getting the points here. Utah versus Utah State. So Utah, a team I took another pick on last week, they came out of the gates gangbusters. Looked fantastic. They were up, what were they, 23-0 or something ridiculous. 24-0, I don't remember. Then guess what happened, Steve? Cam Rising got injured.
Imagine that.
Holy crap. And then they stopped scoring points, and they lost my pick because they didn't beat the spread.
Cam Rising's never been the same since Penn State knocked the crap out of him in the Rose Bowl.
Well, okay, I don't know what it is, but the poor boy cannot stay healthy regardless of what his age is.
He's almost as old as us.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. But anyway, so Petrus on Utah State is also out, so their starting quarterback. He's out. So Barnes is in, who came from Utah. So it is interesting here. We've got Barnes, who used to be with the Utes, now with Utah State. He did play last game for the entire game. But Utah State also lost their number 1 running back in Briggs. So a team that I was high on their offense, and that's what needs to carry them, does not have their 2 main starters, one at quarterback, one at running back. And I just still think there's going to be too much O from the Utes in this game. I'm going to, there's adversity. The Utes seem like every season they have adversity. I'm going with Whittingham here. He knows how to coach. He knows how to get through it. 20.5. I'm taking the Utes as the favorite here. Utah State, they struggled a little bit out of the gate. They've lost some of their playmakers, and I've just got to go to the Utes at 20.5 here. All right. Kennesaw State versus San Jose State. A team I was down on with San Jose State, but I'm going to take them here as the favorite. 19.5 points that they're giving up to Kennesaw State. But I'll tell you, Steve, Kennesaw State has allowed 870 yards through 2 games. They played UTSA. They played Louisiana. 62% of those games is through the air. We know San Jose State likes to throw it. They have a beast of a receiver in Nick Nash. If they can't cover him, he will score 3-4 touchdowns and beat the spread just by Nash touchdowns.
I'm completely on board with the Nash and Gash offensive train this year.
Okay, and I love that, by the way. Yeah. You came up with that last week. It was fantastic. San Jose State has 699 yards through 2 games, and 85% of those yards are through the air. So this isn't a good mix. We've got a throwing offense versus a poor throwing defense, passing defense. It doesn't mix well. So I'm taking San Jose State minus 19.5. And this team could start 3-0, Steve.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable Spartans. Well done. We go to a team that I was high on, Hawaii versus Sam Houston. The line here, 4.5. And I'm going to take the points with the Rainbows. They're coming off of a bye week, so they got banged up a little bit 2 weeks ago versus UCLA. Kept that game close. I know you're down a little bit on UCLA. But hey, a 3-point loss to UCLA and a Big Ten, former Pac-12 school, nothing wrong with that. They're going to Sam Houston, who is much improved. I mean, this is a program that just joined the FBS ranks not too long ago, and they have gotten better. There's no doubt about that. Hawaii has 8 players here that are from Texas, including their quarterback, Braden Shager. You would have to think he's hoping for a huge game in his home state of Texas. And I like Hawaii here because they've had that week off. They can do some adjustments, things that maybe they didn't like through the first 2 weeks. Sam Houston has given up 828 yards through 2 games. Yes, they played UCF, who's a very, very solid team. They also played Rice, who's okay. They're not great, but they're okay. But 828 yards is a lot. I think Hawaii's offense does enough to actually probably win this game. So another game, maybe if you're interested in a money line, take a look at Hawaii here. But my pick here is Hawaii plus 4.5. I just like them too much. You know, I'm going back to my preseason. I'm going to see what I saw in week 2. I'm throwing that week 1, I don't know what that was, away. I like Hawaii.
Makes sense.
So let's go to Steve's favorite team.
Yeah.
The New Mexico Lobos.
Yeah.
Versus Auburn. The line here, 28.5. A lot of points. But I'll tell you, you go back to last week and you look at what New Mexico was able to do in terms of scoring points against Arizona. They're getting over 4 touchdowns. I don't love this line. I don't really like it either way. I'm going to take the points with New Mexico here, Steve. 28.5 points. And with the over-under in the game is 59. So, I mean, the spread they're saying is almost 30 points on a 59 over-under. I don't see that happening at all. And so, you know, I'm guessing this thing ends up maybe 44-17, which is a convincing win by Auburn. 34-17, but guess what? New Mexico beats the spread. So give me the freaking points.
Cal just went into their state, into Auburn, into Alabama, and took Auburn's jock. So anything is possible. I'm not sold on this Auburn team. I like your reasoning there.
Well, and Dampier, for the quarterback for New Mexico, has been awesome here in the first couple weeks. Dual threat, fantastic. And Christian Ellis for New Mexico leads the whole daggone country in sacks. 8. He had 8 against Arizona. 8 sacks in one game. I mean, the dude's on fire, taking the points. But again, I'm not a huge fan of the line either way. It's just too many points for me to not take here. All right, next one. Air Force versus Baylor. The line, 15.5. Remember, I am not high on Air Force here, scoring a lot of points. So, Steve, I am making this Baylor minus 15.5 my second ice-cold lock. I just don't see the points here for Air Force. Yeah. I don't know where they come from. They underwhelmed in week 1 versus a Merrimack team. They underwhelmed in week 2 versus San Jose State. And I don't know where they get the points in this game. I can't not lock this. I don't see. I mean, if Air Force scores 10 points, I'll be happy for them.
I agree with you. Air Force, I think they're in a little trouble this year. I do want to address Squeeze Money back to your New Mexico and Auburn pick.
Yes.
Squeeze Money says he has New Mexico winning, and Steven even says, is Auburn so much of a mess that they lose to New Mexico? I can tell you this.
Woo. We got crazy stuff in the chat. I love it.
If New Mexico beats
maybe it's
Auburn,
not crazy. I don't know.
Hugh Freeze he will be fired by, let's say, Sunday morning at 9 a.m. He will not make it to Sunday morning at 9 a.m.
I would guess not.
New Mexico.
I don't think I'm as crazy to say New Mexico is going to win that game, but I love. I'm a fan of getting the 4. I shouldn't say love. I would just say I'm not a fan of it, but I'll take the 4 touchdowns. So back to the Air Force game. I mean, Baylor, after Utah went up crazy, they were up 23-0 or something. After Rising went out, I mean, they basically shut that offense down. They have a very good defense against an Air Force team that's not going to score many points. They score 17 points. You win the game, 17-0. And hell, it's not going to be 17-0. But again, I love this for Baylor, and it's mainly because I just don't like the Air Force offense. That's why. All right, here we go. The big one: Colorado State. I really don't like this line. 7.5. I was back and forth on what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to take Colorado minus 7.5. I know early on I said, when I made my preseason predictions, I said I think CSU wins this game back because they lost it last year. I think they win the game this year. But I'll tell you what, through the first 2 weeks of the season, this offense is not clicking. That is their bread and butter. I know CU's defense isn't that great, but they got kind of pulled it back together versus Nebraska, whether that was because Nebraska kind of let off the gas or whatever the case may be. If this is going to be running and gunning and who's going to score more points, I'm putting my money on the team that has superstars on their roster, and that is national superstars. I get it. Fowler Nicolasi is a great quarterback in the Mountain West. Horton's a great receiver. But my goodness gracious, if this is going to be a run and gun game, give me the daggone Sanders and the Hunter and all them dudes. And so I got to take Colorado minus 7.5.
I definitely see where you're going. I think your pick makes sense on paper. I would just, before people bet this game, I would just kind of keep an eye on things. Shedeur Sanders was banged up at the end of the last game a little bit. Travis Hunter was pretty upset. So just keep your eye on things maybe before you bet it. But I agree with you. On paper, I mean, those two players, potential top 10 picks, and they can light it up. We saw, was it week 1? I mean, they just absolutely went off. Yeah. Their defense, not that great. But, but their offense, they can cook.
And the reason that I have changed my tune on this is more about CSU's offense. They just haven't yet produced. Like, I mean, they got shut out versus Texas. Yeah. I get it. It's Texas. You still got shut out.
Yeah.
And even last week against Northern Colorado, they scored 38 points, I believe it was. But, that game was closer than it really should have been. So I'm struggling with CSU. I get people not really interested in maybe my pick on this, but that's what I'm doing. I am, however, I talked about run and gun.
Yes.
And because of our buddy Chris, he wants some over-unders. Okay. So I'm going to throw one out. I'm going to take the over, 58.5. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I said, if it is run and gun, I want to take the team that I think has more gun, and that's Colorado. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to call for a high-scoring game. I'm taking Colorado. I'm taking the over 58.5.
I love it.
All right. Oh, Steve, the game I don't want to have to pick. BYU traveling to Wyoming. 10.5 is the spread. I hate the spread. I hate it. I don't want to pick it, but I'm going to pick it. Taking BYU minus 10.5. They're the 10.5 point favorite. I think this opened at 8.5, 7.5, 8.5, and I went, wow, that's pretty good if you're Wyoming. You should feel pretty damn good about this because I don't get that line. Right. At 10.5, I get it more, but my goodness gracious, I have no faith in Wyoming's offense. Yeah. And BYU, they're 2-0, coming off a big win versus SMU, really big win at SMU. They're 63rd in rush defense, 21st in pass defense. And again, Wyoming doesn't have much offense. Yeah. And I'm not going to say a whole lot more about this because we did a preview episode. We brought in a guest, a BYU guest, Trevor, was Saturday's Warrior. He had invited us on his channel a while back. So we returned the favor, and we're going to do a preview episode of this game. I give my score pick of this game in that episode, so you can hear my score pick. Trevor does as well. But in terms of the spread, I'm taking BYU minus 10.5. I don't know what Wyoming's going to do for offense. I just don't see it. I don't know where it's coming from. And Trevor told us he's super impressed with BYU's defense. Yeah. So it's a match made in hell if you're a Poke fan.
Yeah, it's tough right now.
Yeah. All right, the next one. I'm getting more hate for this next one, Steve. It's San Diego State versus Cal. People are gonna hate me again because I'm picking Cal. minus 18.5. I was close to locking this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it, but I was close to locking it. I like the minus 18.5 for Cal here. I saw nothing from San Diego State last week that makes me think they're going to score many points at all in this Aztec offense. I know JEH was talking as we did our review episode. He was saying, well, some of that maybe has to do with the Oregon State defense.
Absolutely, yeah.
100% it does. But my gracious, I don't know what they're going to do here. Cal's quarterback, Mendoza, went 25 of 36, 233 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Again, you mentioned the nice win at Auburn, for crying out loud. They're 2-0. Cal's D picked off Auburn 4 different times. They only allowed 286 yards. Cal's D is 83 rush yards in week 1 versus UC Davis, 121 rush yards in week 2 versus Auburn. And that's what SDSU wants to do. The Aztecs want to run the ball. Well, Cal's not letting people run the ball very much. I don't like this matchup whatsoever. I think SDSU's one-dimensional. We talked about how O'Neal was very hobbled after week 2. I don't like this matchup. Again, I was close to locking this. I'm not going to do it, but I like the minus 18.5.
I still just see this as a rebuilding year for the Aztecs. We have a couple people here picking the Aztecs.
They disagree with me.
Yeah, I get it. And what happened last week? We had a couple of our Aztec fans take umbrage with us picking against them, basically saying that we were crapping on San Diego State. What do? They went out and lost, 26-0?
21-0.
21-0. So it is what it is. I don't blame you for the pick.
All right, so next one we've got another one of your favorite schools, New Mexico State. They're traveling up to your Bulldogs, Fresno State. So I got to take this pick. Fresno State, the 20.5 favorite. I actually did go back and forth on this a little bit, Steve, but I'm going to go with the Bulldogs at 20.5. A little hesitant because about how the defense is playing right now. They're giving up more points than I would like to see them be giving up. New Mexico State just played a very close game against Liberty. They kind of lost it at the very end. They should have won the damn game. I'm still upset about it. But the Aggies D has allowed 410 yards per game, 67% of that being in the pass game. Well, guess what? That's our buddy Mikey Keene.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have a heyday now. So it just doesn't make sense to take the points with New Mexico State for me. So I have to take the Dogs. I do want to see a running game established by the Bulldogs. I do want to see better defense by the Bulldogs. Or I'm going to still be concerned about the Bulldogs. Like, they're still one of the top teams in the Mountain West, but you can't be giving up this amount of yards and this amount of points to FCS schools, Conference USA schools, and think you're going to be in the Mountain West Championship. So I'm still on the Bulldog train. I still think Mikey Keene's going to have a heyday on Saturday, so I'm taking the minus 20.5. But I need to see more from this team.
Mikey Keene, to me, is the best quarterback in the Mountain West. Now that they've gotten past that Michigan game, I think that Fresno State has one of the easiest schedules of the contenders for the Mountain West. I think they just roll here. I like your pick of Fresno State to cover. You picked them to cover 20.5.
Cover 20.5, yeah.
Go Dogs.
And JEH, I get it. SDSU's Cooper, maybe the second best running back in the Mountain West. I get it. But look what the Beavs did last week. I think Cal can do the same thing to that running game, to Cooper and him. That's just my opinion. If he goes off and has a great game, good. I'm happy for the Mountain West. I'd love for the Mountain West to beat a daggone Cal team, ACC team. I'd love to see it. I just don't see it. So that's my pick. All right. Final, I got 3. I'm going to do one more other pick. I didn't do well with my other picks last week, but I'll save that for last. I got to get to the Civil War and the Apple Cup.
Okay.
Oregon State versus Oregon, a game that you locked. I agree with you. I'm not going to lock it, but I agree with you. Oregon State plus 16.5. Far too many points here. What the hell is Vegas doing? This was an easy one. And I didn't lock it, but again, when we pick the same thing, we call it a big mountain lock for some reason. You already locked it, but I don't understand this line. I love taking the points with the Beavers.
I think 2 factors are at play. I think Vegas is still on their preseason perception of Oregon, which Oregon has not lived up to that. At some point, they have to live up to it, or you can't just keep giving them that respect.
Yeah.
And I do think Vegas is under valuing both Oregon State and Washington State. They're out there on their own on an island, kind of forgotten stepchildren.
Yeah.
And so I think we're seeing that double factor kind of happen in this, and I think the Washington State game, and you're going to pick that next.
Yeah,
I think there's some of that in the line too. But yeah, 16.5 points is absolutely crazy. Cannot believe that that's the line.
So let's get to the Washington State. I agree with you as well. I'm plus 4.5 on Washington State. I'm sorry. I'm plus 4.5 on the Cougars. I like a money line play here as well. So I'm throwing out potential 3 money line plays on these spreads with UNLV, with the Cougars, and what was the other one? Hawaii was my other one. Maybe money line plays on all 3 of those. But yeah, I like the Cougs here, plus 4.5. I like to win this straight up. I like everything that I'm seeing from Washington State this season so far. They look like a very good team. Is it Mateer?
Yeah,
I say that. Mateer, the quarterback, has looked
really
good. So yeah, I'm comfortable taking both of the PAC-12 members in this week's games. Potentially still the only undefeated conference in the nation.
Which is pretty amazing. They're 4-0 so far. I like Washington State to win straight up. That's what I said. So I love that they're getting the points. But imagine if both of them win and pull off that upset in the year where Oregon and Washington move to the Big Ten. And not only the remaining 2, okay, they're 2-0. They could both move to 3-0. I saw that the stat of last year's PAC.
Yeah.
So including the treasonous 10 or whatever.
Right. I saw
last year's PAC is like 21-3 this year.
Yeah.
Or something crazy like 27-3 or something crazy like that. I mean, the PAC's still having a damn good year.
Yeah. All right, I got 2 other picks for you to just think about. Again, my other picks did not do well last week, but I was noticing some lines that were interesting to me. So people can chat about these. You can tell me your thoughts. The one of them here, and I only have a slide for one of them. I'm going to bring up the second one just because I think it's fun. But anyway, Rice versus Houston. The line is only 4.5. I think people clearly were way down on Houston to start the season. I think they were picked in some places last in the Big 12. Then you look and see what UNLV, a lowly G5 team, did to them, blah, 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 blah. But look what they did last week. I don't think they're as bad as what people think. This line's only 4.5, which seems awfully low to me. This is at Houston. So an interesting line here you might want to think about taking. My pick is the minus 4.5 with Houston, giving up 4.5 points. I just don't think they're as bad as what people seem to think they are. And Rice is an okay team. They're not great. They're an okay G5 team. I don't see it at 4.5. So that's another pick. Give it some thought. Another one, again, no slide for this one, is the TCU game. They're getting 2.5. I mentioned early on, I was huge on this. I picked them in week, was it 1 or 0? Where they played Stanford? I can't remember.
Week
0 1. And they didn't beat the spread in that game. But they looked like a team that should have beat the spread in that game. And I know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I get all of that. They are much better than they were last year. So another game, if you're looking for maybe, out of our conferences that you might be interested in, take a look at that TCU home. And yeah, that was interesting to me.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you like TCU? Not really.
Not enough to pick them.
Okay.
I have a game I want to talk. I'm not going to make a pick, but a quick game that I want to talk about, and kind of as like a little preview. So I'm pretty sure I didn't fully research this yet, but I'm pretty sure Pitt and West Virginia are playing this weekend.
Yes.
The backyard brawl.
I saw that. So that was another one I looked at.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I want to do a little more research on that. I'm pretty familiar with West Virginia this year with Penn State playing them. I'm going to look into a little more, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick that game this week, and I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
And we can put it out to our mountain dwellers either Friday or Saturday. So look for either Friday or Saturday. I'm going to make a pick in the backyard brawl. We'll get that out. And then another thing I want to say, we had some fans in the state of Oregon say they can't bet yet in college sports, yada yada. There's other states that can't. I know in Tennessee, Bill's down in Tennessee, the even there where the Baptists rule everything, they can do sports betting. But some of these other communist states don't allow it yet. So if you're in one of those states and you can't bet, or maybe you just don't want to put your own money out there, I want to challenge all those mountain dwellers. Do what we do. Come up with your picks every week. Keep track of it and let us know in the comments. We do review episodes on Sunday. So make your picks, put them on paper, even if you can't actually bet them, and let us know in the comments how you're doing. Are you beating me? Are you beating JY? Are you picking Big Ten games? Are you picking Mountain West games? Are we even Coug fans, Florida State fans? It's fun. I mean, it's so much fun. So I want you guys to do that. Make your picks. And JH says he doesn't gamble, so don't gamble. But I want to see you make your picks, even if you just pick the Beavs and the Cougs. And let us know how you're doing in the comments.
Yeah, and so what I did last week, I actually put it on the community tab. So when you go to our channel, or if you go to your subscribers page, you'll see some picks. So that's how I did my Wyoming pick. Yep. That's how I did my Fresno lock pick, which hit. So we'll do another community tab for Pitt and WVU.
Backyard Brawl.
Backyard Brawl. Get that up. Again, either Friday or Saturday. I think both of mine got up. I may have gotten YO up Friday, which was a dud. But I got Fresno up on Saturday morning. So we'll get that up in the community. You can check that out on our channel. So.